There's one person where it still says joining, but they are joining. And that's the only person in the waiting room.
Copy that. All righty then. So welcome, welcome, welcome. I know we have some 7th and 8th grade students and parents in here. Parents, if your students are not sitting by you or if they're in another room, if you'll call them in, because I want them to hear this just as much as I would like for you to, just so that we're all on the same page. If you have never seen me before, I am Mrs. Bing. I am our assistant principal here at Crown Point. I do have on Mr. Casters, Mr. Clausen, who are our Algebra 1 and biology teachers. They're listening in and can answer specific questions about the content if I am unable to. And we also have our Dean of Students, Mr. Mack, on the line. He's going to be monitoring that chat box. So feel free to write your questions in the chat. You don't have to wait till the end, and he'll be getting back to you, or he'll let me know if it's something I need to answer in the moment just to clarify for you. So we are going to be discussing acceleration night tonight. This meeting is being recorded. If you have to jump out or if you miss any piece of it, I'm going to be recording it and posting it on our Facebook page as well as our YouTube page so that you can rewatch it if need be, or see the end of it, or if you get disconnected. All right, so our agenda for today, we're going to be talking through the math course progressions, the science course progressions, and this is going to talk about middle and high school, graduation requirements, and then parent and student resources, and we'll address any questions at the end. So I'm going to start with the middle school math course progression. So a course progression shows you the courses that you take in a particular order. Now, math is always super, super complicated because there are many, many, many ways that you can journey to through the math courses for middle school and high school. So for the students that are currently in Algebra 1, our 7th and 8th grade students, this is an accelerated path. You are in an honors path, an accelerated path to be able to get through to calculus. The ultimate goal of starting Algebra 1 in middle school is to get you to be able to take those higher level math classes like pre-calculus and calculus when you get to high school. Those aren't necessarily required to take, but especially depending on where your student wants to go to college or what they plan to do after high school, those classes can be very beneficial. So what you're seeing on this screen are the course progressions and the different ways that students can take their classes. So the first one you'll see as a 6th grader, you have 3 different options for classes. And this is the Orange County course progression. So we don't follow it to the T, but we do follow it generally speaking. So these are the classes that students have the option of taking in 6th grade. 6th grade math is the standard 6th grade math class that every student will take. If you are not in 6th grade math, you might take 6th grade advanced math or 7th grade math if you're on that accelerated path to take pre-algebra as a 7th grader or algebra 1 as an 8th grader. For 7th grade, the options are a little different. So if you're in the standard path, you would take 7th grade math, which is a standard math. So it goes from 6th grade to 7th grade. If you were in an advanced class in 6th grade, you might take a 7th grade advanced class, or what we do here at Crown Point is you would take a pre-algebra class. So that looks a little bit different. Hold on a second. I don't know what happened to my screen there a little bit. So that looks a little bit different depending on the path that the student takes. So there are some students and we have those at our school that in 7th grade are already taking Algebra 1. So those students that are already taking Algebra 1, it's because their goal is to be in geometry as an 8th grader. So they've skipped a few skills or a few courses along the way. For our 8th graders, these are the 3 options for 8th graders. They will either be in the 8th grade pre-algebra if they've been on the standard path from 6th grade math to 7th grade math to 8th grade pre-algebra. If they have already taken pre-algebra, then they are in Algebra 1. So if they were a 7th grader that took pre-algebra, they would be in Algebra 1 as an 8th grader. And then they would be in geometry if they took Algebra 1 last year. So we don't have any students in our building that are currently in geometry. Our current 7th graders that are in Algebra 1 will be our first full geometry class next school year. So the reason why this is important is because the courses that you take in middle school dictate the courses that you take as a high school student. So what you'll notice, eighth grade parents, I don't know if you're going to a standard high school, one of the Orange County high schools, like if you're going to a COE, one of the things that you're going to be asked is what eighth grade math did your student take? And based on that, they'll tell you what options you have to take as a ninth grader. So on the next slide, that's what this shows you. So if you look it says at the top, for our students who are in Algebra 1 as an eighth grader, as a ninth grader, you would be placed in geometry. Okay, so, and this is the course progression that you would take. You would take geometry as a ninth grader, and then in 10th grade, you would take Algebra 2. And then when you get to 11th and 12th grade, that's when you can choose your different pathways based on the courses that you would like to take. If you want to end up in calculus for 12th grade, then of course you would take pre-calculus in 11th grade. If you want to do one of those combinations, because you're just looking to do advanced topics, you can choose those as well. So that's all dependent on your class as an eighth grader. So your eighth grade class actually dictates where you go as a ninth grader. So those seventh graders who are on the call right now, who are in Algebra 1, when you go to ninth grade, you will have already taken algebra and geometry, which means you'd be starting with Algebra 2 as a ninth grader before moving into pre-calculus in 10th grade. So it allows you some flexibility there in choosing how you finish out your high school career in regards to math. Okay, so that is the math course progression, and I want to talk a little bit about science. So I am going to come back to the conversation about graduation requirements and how algebra and biology affect that, but I want to go through the middle school course progression first. So in middle school, science course progression is a lot more simple than the math course progression. So first off, as a sixth grader, we take comprehensive science. So we do not offer the option B where we have the life science as a sixth grader. We only offer comprehensive science 1 or comprehensive science 1 advanced. So in seventh grade, the options are the comprehensive science 2 or comprehensive science 2 advanced. And then eighth grade is comp science 3 or comp science 3 advanced. Now that is the standard course progression, the standard course progression. We do something a little different here in our middle school outside of Orange County, because I don't think they offer biology to eighth graders. We offer biology. So instead of taking that comprehensive science 3, our advanced middle schoolers in eighth grade, they take biology instead of that class. Now, the important thing to know is that the comprehensive science 3 in eighth grade is a tested subject. So regardless if they're taking comp science 3 or if they are taking biology, it is a tested subject. They will have to take a test at the end. The difference is the content in which they test. The eighth grade science test, the comprehensive science test them over the knowledge that they've learned from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. The biology test is different because it only tests them on the subject of biology that they learned in 8th grade. So that's the course progression for science. So in high school, biology is a required course. So for our students, because they will have taken that biology already as an 8th grader, when they go into 9th grade, they have a lot more flexibility in which science courses they take, because they're not having to start with the biology. So they can take that environmental science, that marine science, and then move into these different options that they have for 10th, 11th, 12th, because the students, as long as they've had that biology credit and that EOC is completed and passed, they have a lot of flexibility in what types of science classes they take once they get to 10th grade, because they fulfilled that biology class. The biology one is the one that is very much a requirement. Physics and chemistry are strongly recommended. And so normally what the progression you would see there is like chemistry, environmental science probably as a 9th grader, and then that chemistry in 10th, physics in 11th, and then you can move into that anatomy and physiology in 12th grade. But You have options in that. You can do the astronomy, you can do the AP environmental science, the AP chemistry, those different courses. It's because many of your students who are in this biology class, your high students, they can work in those AP environments when they get to high school. So it is definitely something that we want to consider, because they'll have that biology credit right out of the way when they leave 8th grade. Okay, so I do want to talk a little bit about the high school graduation requirements, because sometimes I think there's a misconception about the fact that just because we're in middle school, these classes we're taking in middle school doesn't mean they don't count. These classes count towards your high school diploma. So in order to earn a high school diploma in Florida as of right now, all students must pass the Algebra 1 end of course exam, obtain a course credit in Algebra 1, and obtain a course credit in Biology 1. So it's important to know that with the Algebra 1 class, you must pass the EOC and pass the class. You have to do both. That is a big deal for students. They must pass the EOC and pass the class. For biology, you have to pass the class, but the end of course exam counts for 30% of the student's grade. So if you don't do well on the biology EOC, that affects you obtaining that course credit in biology. So students that do not pass the Algebra 1 end of course exam are going to have a chance to take it again in school. The biology and Algebra 1, they have retakes that happen in the fall semester of the next year. So if, for example, for our 8th graders, if you don't pass one of those assessments, you'll get an opportunity to retake it as a 9th grader, but you don't want to have to do that. And the reason why I wanted you to pass it the first time, not just because, you want to get it out of the way, but if you have to take a retake, you won't be in an Algebra 1 class anymore. You would be in a geometry class and having to study for an Algebra 1 EOC at the same time. And that's not easy. Not your 9th grade year of high school. You don't want to have that on your back. You don't want to have to stress about that. You want to pass that the first time so that when you get into 9th grade, you can focus on geometry. And I didn't list it on this page because we don't have any students in geometry this year, but geometry is also a required class and EOC for graduation. You have to have that Algebra 1 and that geometry EOC, as well as that biology. So when you get into 9th grade, if you've already taken Algebra 1, you don't want to be stressing about having to retake the Algebra 1 EOC. Like, this is the time. The great thing about it being in 8th grade and taking it now is you can get this out of the way before things get more difficult as a high school student, when you want to take those AP classes and honors classes and dual enrollment classes. So some things that I wanted to make sure to note about how you can prepare for this assessment. So those of you, you have Mr. Caceres, Mr. Caceres makes videos consistently for his lessons. Those videos are still available at your fingertips that you can utilize to review. PrepWorks is super important. PrepWorks says they have a guarantee that if your student passes PrepWorks, completes it, and passes the assessment, that they will be able to pass that Algebra 1 EOC. That's how good the program is. So if your student is on PrepWorks and they're completing the lessons and they're getting and they're doing well, they have a high chance of passing that EOC. So if you've never heard of PrepWorks, I would turn to your Algebra 1 student right now and ask them, how's that PrepWorks going? Are you completing those assignments? Where are you with that? Because they need to be following up with the blocks, and you can reach out to Mr. Caceres about what block your student is in, because it's divided up into different blocks, to make sure that they are on pace. Khan Academy. Khan Academy is a free resource. It is in there Clever, just like PrepWorks is. It is a free resource. It has videos, all kinds of review. And I know Mr. Caceres assigns different practice assignments on there. It's a great place to send students to get that review information. The DOE does offer an Algebra 1 practice test so that the students can get familiar with what kind of questions will be asked on the test. And then Math Nation. It used to be called Algebra Nation, but now it's called Math Nation. As a school, we are going to be utilizing Math Nation to help our algebra kids practice. So we are going to have an intervention time starting next week, where we're going to be pulling those algebra kids and we're going to be getting them on Math Nation so they can get that support in those areas where they're struggling. So those are those algebra resources that you can utilize. For biology, Savas Realize is where we have the Envision and Clever. That's their textbook, the textbook company. There are resources for quizzes. There's extra assignments. There's vocabulary practice. There's a ton of resources within there. Students should know how to get into Clever. In order to get into Clever, you got to use your Microsoft account information, which has your student number, at csusafloridastudents.org, and then the password, your first initial, last initial, birthday, exclamation point. For you to get into Realize, in order to get your biology access, your username is the same as Clever, but the password doesn't have the exclamation point. So keep that in mind. And then, it says Amoeba Sisters channel on YouTube. And then, I can't see the bottom one. Then this Khan Academy is the other option in biology. So that is everything. These are the email addresses. So you have Mr. Caceres' email address. He's our Algebra 1 teacher. Mr. Clausen is our bio teacher. I also left my email address on there, as well as Mr. Mack's email address, in case you need to contact any of us. But again, I just really wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of the expectations with these courses, because they really are high stakes courses, the testing that is involved with these classes, as well as how this affects your student moving forward. When you, based on your score in Algebra 1 and biology, when you get to 9th grade, that's what your GPA starts with. So right now, your student has a high school GPA because they are in Algebra 1 and biology, or biology. So if your student has a D in Algebra 1, that's a what, a 2.0, 1 point, that's a 1.0 GPA. You don't want to start 9th grade like that. They don't want to start in that way. So these classes are so important for their high school career. So I wanted to make sure that all of our parents were very much aware of this information. I'm going to go to the chat box and see if there are questions that Mr. Mack has not answered.
There are two. One just came in as you were asking that.
Okay.
But
About when?
Mr. Altman's, said when and where will the testing take place?
So testing is going to take place on campus. We don't have the schedule yet of when the testing will happen. So if your student is at home, they would have to come on campus for testing specifically. They would have to come on campus for testing, because they won't allow this kind of testing to take place at home. Are these the only high school credit courses we have? This year, yes, Algebra 1 and biology are the only ones. Next year, we'll be adding in geometry. So that'll be another class that we have as high school credit. But these are the ones that we are offering currently. What assurances will we have that appropriate COVID protections are in place? So I'm glad that you asked that question, because we are working through what the logistics of that looks like, and staying within the parameters of the state. Okay. What we're planning to do is testing our face-to-face kids who are already in the building on certain days, and having specific days for our mobile kids to come in, so they aren't mixing in with the kids that are here. They would be testing separately from the kids that come to school every day. That way that those kids can just come in, they take their test, and then they go home. So we are going to be creating very different schedules than what we normally have, in order to make sure that we are ensuring that students have enough time to take their assessment while following all of the state's guidelines. They follow CDC guidelines. Now, as far as those guidelines, I'm not sure about Mr. Altman's, but I will say that what we'll do in the building for those students that are mobile is going to be different for the students that are already face-to-face. We aren't going to be testing them at the same time. So once we get closer to that testing time and we get more information about what testing is going to look like, we will provide that to you. so that you can make an educated decision about how you want to move forward. I mean, we can't force anyone to come in and test, but and I understand where your concerns are. I can't tell you what it's specifically going to look like until I have more information from the district as well as the state about what we can and cannot do in regards to testing. It's a little different than when we have iReady and NWEA, because that's in-house testing that we control. We don't control anything that has to do with that state testing. They let us know when and how we can test and what we can and cannot do. So once we have that information, we'll have another conversation with mobile parents specifically so that you know what to expect and you can make decisions based on that information. Do we have any other questions that I haven't answered or we haven't addressed?
That's it from the chat box.
Okay. I don't know if anyone has a hand raised or anything like that. I don't see anything.
No hands raised.
All right. So if we don't have any other questions and you feel like you are good to go. Are you asking if the grade needs to be a C or higher? The difficult part is because the end grade is calculated with the EOC, we won't know what the final grade is until that EOC gets calculated in. So they'll have when you get at the end of the year, you'll get a pending report card. That'll show the grade that you currently have, but you won't even, you'll be able to see the current grade in Power School, but when the EOC scores come back, that's when you'll get the final grade. So we can't really say what you need to make in the class because it's going to be combined with that EOC score. We don't have a test date as of yet. We're waiting on the state to give us those details. They're still trying to figure out with the federal education in order to figure out what we have to do, when we have to do it. We'll have a date. It'll be sometime in May. And it'll look different if your student is mobile or face-to-face. So face-to-face students will have a specific test date on campus, and then mobile students will have a different date. If you have any other questions, you can go ahead and if you're a blended student, then you would test on the day that you're here. Yeah, you won't have to come in an extra day. For anyone who's missed the presentation, we recorded everything. So I'm just going to post it on YouTube, on our YouTube channel and on our Facebook page. So you'll be able to watch from the beginning for those that have missed it. All right. I don't see any other questions. All right, if you don't have any other questions, you are free to exit. And I'll hold off a second in case anyone is typing anything else in the chat or wants to hold any other questions. I mean, that's not out of the question. I'll tell you that much. We have to, it's a numbers game. We have to see what those numbers will look like. And we have to see what they'll allow us to do. So we don't know right now. Normally testing has to occur during the school day. We don't know if they're going to allow, a reprieve from that where we can test later in the day or like on a Saturday or things like that so that we can spread kids out a lot more. So it's not out of the question. As far as the test tutoring and test prep, there is tutoring going on right now on Tuesday. Which day? I don't remember which day is algebra, Mr. Caceres, but I know one day is algebra and one day is pre-algebra. But Mr. Caceres currently has one day of after-school tutoring going on, and then we will also be doing
Tuesday is my algebra tutoring. Tuesday.
Okay, so Tuesday at 3:30 online in person, Mr. Caceres is offering tutoring. We are also going to be beginning next week. We're going to be doing some in-school tutoring that's going to target students so that they can get the support they need. And we're going to be doing review and Math Nation. So that'll be happening during school. Mr. Caceres will be tutoring after school. And Mr. Caceres will also have review sessions during class as well. That will get close once we get closer to test times. He'll be doing some during class review of all the concepts before students test. If you want to attend tutoring, you just have to send an email to Mr. Caceres so he can get that tutoring form for you, and then you can attend. If you're online, you can join on Mr. Caceres' Zoom at 3:30 on Tuesday. And if you're a face-to-face student and you can't stay after school, you can always join the Zoom when you get home and just log in at 3:30 so that you can get that support. All right. So I think we're going to go ahead and end the meeting. If you have any additional questions regarding Algebra 1, please feel free to reach out to Mr. Caceres. His email is on the screen. If you have any questions specifically regarding biology, Mr. Clausen's email address is on the screen as well. I want to make sure that everyone is aware. We know how important this test is, and we're taking it very seriously and making sure that we provide you guys with the proper instruction during the day and the intervention when needed. We just want to make sure that parents are able to support us on their end. So when we're asking, to get our students that prep works time and encouraging them to study and stay up to date with their lessons, it's because we know how important this test is for them. We know how important, and we want to make sure that they have the best possible chance. So we're going to go ahead and end the meeting. I will be posting this on our YouTube page as well as our Facebook page. So if you need to refer back to it, you will have that opportunity to look back at it if questions come up that you missed earlier in the presentation. But that is it. Thank you guys for joining us this afternoon. I hope everyone has a great evening and an awesome weekend.